Michael stood frozen in the doorway, his breath caught in his throat. The dim glow of the bedside lamp illuminated Amanda, his wife, wrapped in the arms of another man, their bodies tangled in a betrayal that made his stomach churn. The scent of sweat and lust filled the air, mingling with the soft moans that sliced through him like a blade. Amanda's eyes met his, widening in horror, but she didn't move. Neither did the man beside her. Michael's fists clenched, his pulse a deafening roar in his ears. His entire world shattered in that single, agonizing moment. Part 1. Amanda never intended for her marriage to reach this point. In the beginning, her love for Michael had been all-consuming, a fire that burned bright with passion and promise. But as the years passed, that fire dulled, smothered under the weight of routine and complacency. Michael had become distant, withdrawn into his work and the quiet predictability of their suburban life. Conversations had dwindled to necessities, grocery lists, schedules, the occasional, "How was your day?" that neither of them really listened to anymore. She had tried. Oh, how she had tried. She planned date nights, surprised him with little gifts, initiated intimacy, but each effort was met with a lukewarm response, as if her attempts at rekindling their connection were nothing more than minor inconveniences. Over time, she stopped trying, stopped fighting for a man who no longer seemed to see her. And that was how she had felt, invisible. It wasn't until she met Ryan again that she realized just how much of herself she had lost. They had known each other in university, back when Amanda had been full of dreams and ambitions. Ryan had been a close friend, someone she had laughed with, shared secrets with, and maybe, just maybe, harbored a quiet crush on. Life had taken them in different directions, but seeing him now, after all these years, stirred something deep inside her. A part of herself she had buried long ago. Their chance meeting had been innocuous enough, a cafe she often frequented, a familiar voice saying her name, a startled double-take followed by an excited hug. They sat down to catch up, their words flowing effortlessly, and for the first time in years, Amanda felt seen. Ryan was charming in a way Michael had long forgotten how to be. He listened, truly listened, to her words, his eyes filled with the kind of warmth she hadn't felt in years. He asked about her life, her passions, the things that made her happy. And that was the moment Amanda realized she had no answer. What made her happy? She had no idea anymore. That realization haunted her. In the days that followed, she found herself thinking about Ryan more than she should have. She would check her phone, hoping for a message. When he finally reached out, suggesting they meet for coffee again, she hesitated for only a moment before agreeing. That was how it started. Texting led to phone calls, which led to coffee dates, which led to long walks where laughter came easy, and Amanda began to anticipate their meetings with a giddy excitement she hadn't known in years. The more they talked, the more she confided in him, about Michael, about the loneliness, about the ache in her chest that never seemed to fade. Ryan listened with understanding, his presence a balm to wounds she hadn't even realized were still raw. The first time he touched her, just a brief graze of his fingers against hers, her breath had hitched. It was such a simple, fleeting thing, yet it sent a shock through her system. A reminder that she was still capable of feeling, of wanting. And that was the moment she knew she was in trouble. She tried to tell herself it was just friendship, that she wasn't doing anything wrong. But deep down she knew. One evening, after another long conversation that stretched into the night, Amanda stood in front of her bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. Her heart was racing, her cheeks flushed with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "Stop." But she didn't. Their meetings became more frequent. The boundaries blurred. The tension built with every lingering glance, every touch that lasted a little too long. She felt alive again, like she had woken up from a long, suffocating slumber. And yet, she was terrified, because she knew that if she kept going, she would cross a line that there was no coming back from. Part 2. Amanda's resolve wavered with every passing day. She knew she should have pulled away from Ryan, severed whatever connection was forming between them before it was too late. But the truth was, she didn't want to. The exhilaration of something new, something forbidden, made her feel young again, desirable, alive. It was a feeling she had nearly forgotten. And so, she continued to step closer to the edge, even as guilt whispered warnings in the back of her mind. Ryan, for his part, never pressured her. He was respectful, always leaving the next move up to her. But he also made it clear, through subtle glances, lingering touches, and the softness in his voice, that he wanted her. That, if she chose, he would be hers. One evening, Michael was working late again. Amanda had finished her usual routine, making dinner, tidying up, scrolling aimlessly through her phone, before finally giving in. She texted Ryan, "Are you free?" He responded almost instantly, "For you? Always." Her heart pounded in her chest as she typed out the next words, fingers trembling slightly. "Meet me at the cafe?" A short pause. Then, "On my way." She had intended for it to be just coffee, just conversation. But when she arrived, Ryan greeted her with that easy smile, and she knew she was in trouble. They talked for an hour, and then another, until the cafe closed and they were forced outside into the night air. Neither of them made a move to leave. "Want to take a walk?" Ryan asked, shoving his hands in his pockets, looking at her the way no one had in years. Amanda hesitated. She should have said no. She should have gone home. Instead, she nodded. They walked through the dimly lit streets, talking about everything and nothing at the same time. Amanda found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in what felt like forever. It was easy with him. Effortless. At some point, they stopped beneath a street lamp, the golden light casting a glow on Ryan's face. He reached out, brushing a stray hair from her cheek, his fingers barely grazing her skin. Amanda inhaled sharply, her body betraying her as she leaned slightly into his touch. "Amanda," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. She knew what was coming. She knew she should stop him, stop herself. But as he leaned in, as his lips hovered just inches from hers, she didn't move away. The first kiss was tentative, hesitant, as if they were both testing the boundaries of what was allowed. But once the dam broke, there was no stopping it. Amanda clung to him, her fingers threading through his hair, her body pressing against his as years of loneliness and longing poured into that single moment. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Amanda's mind screamed at her. What had she done? But as she looked into Ryan's eyes, as he stroked her cheek with a tenderness she had craved for so long, she knew there was no turning back. "We should go," she whispered, though she made no effort to move. Ryan nodded, but he didn't release her. "Amanda, tell me to stop. If you want me to stop, say it now." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That night, she didn't go home right away. They sat in his car, talking, touching, skirting the line of no return. When she finally pulled herself away, it was with the knowledge that this was only the beginning. The boundary had been crossed, and deep down, she didn't regret it. The next morning, she woke up to find a message from Ryan. "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you." Amanda stared at the screen, her stomach twisting in a mix of anticipation and guilt. She should end this now, before it was too late. But instead, she typed back, "Me too." The days that followed were a blur of stolen moments and whispered confessions. Amanda found herself craving Ryan's presence, his touch, the way he made her feel like she was the center of the universe. He awakened something inside her that she thought had long been dead. They met in secret. Afternoons at his apartment, long lunches at hidden cafes, stolen hours where they indulged in each other with reckless abandon. Each encounter left her breathless and yearning for more. But the deeper she fell, the more the guilt festered inside her. She would return home to Michael, sit across from him at the dinner table, and wonder if he could see it in her eyes. The deception, the betrayal. He would ask about her day, and she would lie, weaving a story of errands and mundane tasks while the scent of Ryan still lingered on her skin. One evening, as she lay beside Michael in bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of her choices settled heavily on her chest. She had never imagined herself capable of such a thing. And yet, here she was, living a double life, torn between the comfort of the past and the thrill of the present. "Are you okay?" Michael's voice cut through the silence, pulling her from her thoughts. Amanda turned to face him, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just tired." He studied her for a moment before nodding, pulling her close. She let him hold her, but her mind was elsewhere, drifting back to Ryan, to the way he made her feel, to the inevitable disaster she was hurtling toward. She knew she couldn't keep this up forever, but she also knew she wasn't ready to let go. Part 3. Amanda's world had become an intricate web of deception, each strand woven with the weight of choices she wasn't sure she regretted. The more time she spent with Ryan, the more she craved him, the more she justified her actions. It wasn't just the thrill of secrecy that kept pulling her back. It was the way he made her feel. Like she mattered. Like she wasn't just some wife fading into the background of a marriage that had lost its spark. The stolen moments became more frequent, more reckless. A text sent while Michael was in the shower. A meeting arranged between errands. A lingering touch when they knew they were being watched. They became skilled at their game, crafting alibis and excuses, learning when to pull back just enough to avoid suspicion. Amanda had never considered herself a liar, but the words came easier with each passing day. Ryan had become her escape, a parallel life where she wasn't a neglected wife but a woman desired. And yet, there were nights she lay awake beside Michael, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he already knew. If he could see the change in her, the way she seemed lighter, happier. If he questioned why she was suddenly dressing differently, smiling more. If he noticed the way she flinched when he reached for her, because his touch no longer set her skin on fire the way Ryan's did. It wasn't just lust, it was something more. Something she wasn't ready to name, because naming it would make it real. One evening, after another excuse about meeting a friend, Amanda found herself in Ryan's apartment, her heart racing as he pressed her against the door. His hands traced patterns along her arms, his lips brushing against her ear as he whispered, "You don't have to leave tonight." Her breath hitched, and for a moment, she considered it. Staying. Not going home. Not pretending anymore. The thought sent a rush of excitement through her, but it was quickly followed by the crushing weight of reality. "I can't," she whispered back, though even she didn't believe her own words. Ryan pulled back, just enough to look into her eyes. "Then tell me you don't want this. That you don't want me." Amanda swallowed hard, her resolve crumbling. She couldn't say it, because it would be a lie. Instead, she kissed him, hard, desperate, clinging to him as if he were the only thing keeping her from drowning. And in that moment, he was. They fell into bed together, and Amanda let herself be consumed. By the heat, by the passion, by the intensity of it all. For the first time in years, she felt truly alive. Every nerve in her body ignited in a way she had thought long forgotten. There were no second thoughts, no guilt, no hesitation. Only the hunger, the need, the want. It was only after, when she lay tangled in the sheets, Ryan tracing lazy circles on her back, that the weight of what she had done truly settled over her. There was no denying it now. No pretending that it was just harmless flirting, that they had simply crossed a line but could still turn back. She had cheated. She had betrayed Michael in the worst possible way. And the most terrifying part? She wasn't sure she regretted it. The guilt came later, creeping in like a shadow as she drove home, her body still thrumming from Ryan's touch. She walked into the house, half expecting Michael to be sitting in the living room, waiting for her with accusations on his lips. But he wasn't. He was asleep, as always, oblivious to the storm raging inside her. Amanda stood in the doorway of their bedroom, watching him, wondering how they had gotten here. How had they gone from the passionate, inseparable couple they once were to this? To a marriage built on silence and routine? To her seeking comfort in the arms of another man? She climbed into bed beside him, careful not to wake him. But as she stared at the ceiling, sleep refused to come. Because now, there was no going back. She was living a double life. And sooner or later, it was going to come crashing down. Part 4. Amanda woke up in a haze of conflicting emotions. The morning light streamed through the curtains, casting a soft glow over Michael as he slept beside her, unaware of the betrayal that had already reshaped their marriage. She wanted to feel guilty, to regret the night before, but all she could think about was Ryan. His touch, his whispered words, the way he had made her feel alive again. The next few days were a whirlwind of anxiety and exhilaration. She avoided Michael's gaze, terrified that he would somehow see the truth in her eyes. But he remained oblivious, too wrapped up in work and routine to notice the way she drifted through their home like a ghost. At the same time, she found herself drawn to Ryan more than ever. Their stolen moments became longer, their meetings more reckless. One afternoon, As Amanda sat in her car outside Ryan's apartment, her phone buzzed. A message from him. Come up. I need you. Her pulse quickened as she read the words. She knew she should turn the key in the ignition and drive away, but instead, she opened the door, stepping into the inevitable. Inside, Ryan was waiting for her, his expression unreadable. Are you sure about this? He asked, searching her face for doubt. Amanda hesitated for only a second before stepping forward. I don't think I've ever been more sure of anything. Their affair escalated from there. What had started as emotional longing had now become something undeniable, something physical. Their encounters grew more passionate, more desperate, as if they were trying to consume each other entirely. They met in hotels, in the shadows of parks, in the secrecy of their cars. Each meeting left Amanda breathless, consumed by both passion and guilt. She told herself that she could control it, that she could keep this part of her life separate from the one she had built with Michael. But deep down, she knew she was playing with fire. Every lie she told, every excuse she made, was another crack in the fragile foundation of her marriage. Then, one evening, Michael came home early. Amanda had just returned from seeing Ryan. She had barely had time to compose herself when she heard the front door open. Panic surged through her as she rushed to the mirror, checking her reflection for any trace of her indiscretion. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her lips still swollen from Ryan's kisses. She ran to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face, hoping to erase any lingering evidence. Michael walked into the room, setting his bag down with a tired sigh. Hey, he said, leaning against the doorframe. I left work early today. Thought maybe we could have dinner together. Amanda's stomach twisted. That sounds nice, she forced a smile, moving past him toward the kitchen. Every movement felt mechanical, every word rehearsed. She hated herself for it, but she couldn't stop. As they sat across from each other at the dinner table, Michael studied her. You've been different lately. Her heart pounded. Different how? I don't know. Distracted. Distant. Is everything okay? Amanda forced a laugh, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. Of course. Just a lot on my mind. Work, family stuff. You know how it is. Michael nodded, but his eyes lingered on her for a beat too long. She could feel suspicion brewing beneath the surface, the first sign that her carefully crafted facade was beginning to crack. That night, as Michael slept beside her, Amanda lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She knew it couldn't last forever. The walls were closing in, and sooner or later, the truth would come out. Her meetings with Ryan became more frantic, more desperate. Each time they were together, she felt the weight of impending discovery press down on her, but she couldn't stop. She craved him, needed him, even as she knew she was teetering on the edge of ruin. One evening, as they lay tangled in the sheets of a cheap motel room, Ryan ran a hand through her hair. We can't keep this up forever, Amanda. She sighed, resting her head against his chest. I know. Then what are we doing? He asked, his tone more serious than usual. Do you see a future with me, or are we just delaying the inevitable? Amanda had no answer. She wanted to be with Ryan, but at what cost? She had built a life with Michael, a home, a family. Was she really willing to throw it all away for the intoxicating pull of something new? Before she could answer, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it, her breath catching in her throat when she saw Michael's name on the screen. Her hands trembled as she answered. Hello? Where are you? Michael's voice was sharp, suspicious. Amanda sat up, gripping the sheets. I'm out running errands. Why? There was silence on the other end. Then, finally, come home. We need to talk. Amanda's stomach clenched. He knew. Or at least, he suspected. The walls were closing in faster than she had anticipated. She ended the call and turned to Ryan, panic flashing in her eyes. I think he knows. Ryan sat up, exhaling heavily. Then you need to make a choice, Amanda. Right now. Amanda stared at him, her heart pounding. She had spent so long walking the line between two worlds, believing she could have both. But the time for illusions was over. She had to choose. And no matter what she decided, someone was going to get hurt. Part 5. Amanda had spent weeks walking the razor's edge, But the moment of reckoning came sooner than she expected. It was a Friday evening when Michael came home with a look that sent a chill down her spine. His expression was not angry, not confrontational, just quiet, eerily composed. "We need to talk," he said. Amanda swallowed hard, setting down her wine glass. "Of course. What's wrong?" Michael didn't sit. He remained standing, gripping a small slip of paper in his hands. "I got a call today from the credit card company. They flagged a transaction at a hotel. Your name was on the reservation." Her blood ran cold. "I thought it was a mistake at first, so I did some checking." He tossed the receipt onto the table. "You were there, Amanda?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The room spun around her. She had prepared herself for the possibility of getting caught, but now that the moment was here, her mind went blank. "Who is he?" Michael asked, his voice tight with restrained emotion. Tears welled in Amanda's eyes. "Michael, Don't lie to me," he snapped, his composure finally breaking. "I deserve the truth." She looked at him. The man she had once loved so deeply, the man who had been her partner for so many years. And in that moment, she knew there was no salvaging what they had. "His name is Ryan," she whispered. "I never meant for it to happen." Michael laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "You never meant for it to happen? Do you think that makes it better? Do you think that undoes the months of lies, the sneaking around, the betrayal?" He took a deep breath, visibly forcing himself to stay calm. "How long?" "A few months." "And do you love him?" Amanda hesitated. The answer should have been simple, but as she searched her heart, she realized she didn't know. What she had with Ryan was passion, escape, excitement. But was it love? "I don't know," she admitted. Michael nodded, his jaw tightening. "That's all I needed to hear." He turned away, heading for the stairs. "Michael, please." Amanda reached for him, but he recoiled from her touch. "Don't," he said, his voice raw. "Just don't." That night, he slept in the guest room. The next morning, he was gone before she woke up. Over the next few days, Amanda's world crumbled. Michael refused to speak to her, communicating only through brief, clipped messages. Then came the inevitable conversation. Divorce? He didn't scream, didn't rage. He simply laid out the terms, his voice hollow, as if the life had been drained from him. She lost the house. She lost the comfort of their shared life. Worst of all, she nearly lost their daughter. Michael petitioned for full custody. His argument was that he had been the stable parent, the one who had remained faithful, the one who had always been there. Amanda fought, desperately clinging to the one piece of her life she couldn't bear to lose. It was a brutal legal battle, one that left both of them exhausted. But in the end, the court granted them joint custody. Seeing the way her daughter looked at her, confused, hurt, distant, was worse than anything Amanda had imagined. She had shattered the family they had built, and now she was left picking up the pieces alone. Months passed. The divorce was finalized. Michael moved out of their home, and Amanda found herself in a small apartment, alone for the first time in over a decade. She had thought about reaching out to Ryan, but in the end, she never did. Because now she understood. Ryan had never been the answer. He had been an escape, a temporary reprieve from a life that had felt suffocating. But the real problem had never been Michael. It had been her. The loneliness, the emptiness, the yearning. Those things had always been inside her. She had sought something outside herself to fix what was broken, but now she saw that the only person who could repair the damage was her. One evening, as she sat in her quiet apartment, she picked up the phone and called Michael. He answered after a few rings. "Hello?" "Hi," she said softly. I just wanted to see how you were." There was a pause. Then, "I'm fine. And you?" I'm trying," she admitted. Another silence stretched between them. Then, finally, Michael sighed. "I hope you are, Amanda. For your sake." And then he hung up. Amanda stared at the phone for a long time. She knew they would never be what they once were. Too much had been broken. But maybe, someday, they could at least find a way to be civil. For their daughter's sake. She set the phone down, exhaling slowly. This wasn't the ending she had once imagined, but it was the one she had made. And now, She had to live with it,